Why does it take someone dying for us to want to try to change something? So recently, our news station came out with this article stating that they want to try to do something about concussions after a young man in a nearby sister city had passed away from an apparent head injury. So I don't know who paid them off. I'm hoping that Guardian didn't pay for this article because there's limited research that shows that Guardian helmet covers even prevent any type of collision deceleration. Really, there is no way that we can brace the brain to prevent all concussions. There's no way we can do it unless you want to try to insert some sort of internal device to help stabilize the brain. So really, all we're trying to do is put a band-aid on something that we can't necessarily truly fix. Okay, but there's a few things that I want to cover with this, and that's going to be why wasn't there a mention of an athletic trainer here? The other thing I want to talk about is the reporting of concussions from both student athletes and coaches that is either limited or lacking. The next thing I kind of want to cover is budget concerns for potential athletic trainers, full-time athletic trainers at these schools. So the first thing is they never mentioned an athletic trainer being there on the sideline because I know they probably were. So this article never mentions anything about an athletic trainer when the title is A Safer Game, What is Being Done to Prevent Tragedy from Repeating Itself? Well, I can give you one thing, and that's hiring an athletic trainer. So as an athletic trainer myself, I feel like this is a disservice to our student athletes. Knowing what athletic trainers are capable of, the knowledge and experience they have to prevent injuries, to evaluate injuries, and to obviously come to this young man's side, immediate and emergency care, I think this whole article is a disservice to our student athletes. The second part I want to talk about is the reporting of concussions, both by the student athlete and by the coach. Now, this is something that I've seen in my experience, and I know that it continues to happen at other schools, and there's this stigma regarding concussions in old ways that football used to be played, and that can no longer be a factor in taking care of student athletes. They're not just athletes, they're human beings, and they deserve the best care that we can possibly give them. So again, there should be less stigma around concussions, especially after something like this happens. Again, why do we have to wait to change something unless somebody tragically passes away from such an incident, such as a head injury? I have a deep speculation that if we go back through documentation, either A, he was withholding information, the student athlete, or B, the coach knew about it and he was withholding information. So what about a safer game? Let's talk about a safer game here, because it's not just falling on the helmet. It's not just falling on the athletic trainer. This stuff needs to be reported. This stuff needs to be taken seriously, because if you don't want this to happen again, then you need to say something. Something needs to be said. Something needs to change in order for change to happen. We can't just continually rely on external devices when the brain is an internal device that we use on a daily basis for multiple functions, whether it's thinking, whether it's internal organ function, whether it's heart function, whether it's just living in general, muscle function, anything that has to do with the brain. We should be taking care of this guy right up here upstairs. Not to mention that there's very limited research on any of the helmet covers in reducing such concussions and impact forces. Now, it may change the behavior of certain individuals in understanding that this device will do certain things, but it also plays effect the other way as well, where players and student athletes think that these devices are going to save their head from a concussion, when really all we're trying to do and all this external device is doing is further preventing skull fractures, which we know really don't happen that often anymore because of the design and the functionality of helmets. So there's a few more things that we could do that could prevent future concussions that don't have to do with creating some new external device. And a lot of it has to do with education and reporting, period. Now, the third thing I want to cover is budget concerns. Now, if you have the budget to pay for all of these Guardian helmet covers, then why don't you have the budget to help pay your athletic trainer, or maybe even pay for a second athletic trainer to help cover all of these injuries. Because I know, like me, we have a lot of athletes that need help, and there is no way that I can help every single student athlete. It's just out of my power. So a lot of the times we have to rely on the coaches and what they know in order to gain the information that we need to help take care of all of these athletes. And that usually doesn't happen. So again, if you want to do something, you want to make a safer way to play anything that involves head injuries, whether it's soccer, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, you need to have these stigmas removed. It is not a bad thing to report that you have dizziness, or you have light sensitivities, or that you have nausea, you have trouble sleeping at night. These kind of things need to go away, and it needs to change. Even on the coach's aspect, we understand you want to win, and we understand that you want to do certain things with these athletes, and you expect a certain thing, but student athletes aren't superhuman. They will be subjected to injury and harm and potential harm. There is no way we can remove that unless you just keep them in the room. And even then, there's still a possibility that something could happen. Now, a little bonus tip here that could also be done is maybe we take a little bit deeper look into their medical history. Do they have some sort of underlying health condition? Do doctors even check that anymore? Do they even ask questions? Do we order some sort of heart test? Do we order some sort of brain test? Do we ask about potential concussions? This kind of stuff just bugs me. It bugs me. There's a lot of things that can be done, and the first thing we jump to is an external device with limited research. We have to do better than that. We have to. I can't, man. I can't. It's ridiculous.